This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure, who are here to make procurement simple, offering great value and quality for products and services, all for zero cost. And what business wouldn't want that? I am delighted that their support will now help keep this show accessible and free to listen to wherever you access your podcasts. Please get in touch with them for a chat. Just click on their link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Abi Dunn, founder of 68 People and all-round hospitality champion. Coming up on today's show, Abi welcomes Phil to his own podcast.
Oh, hi, is it Phil? Yeah, brilliant. Take a seat.
Phil loses his cool. Oh, God, I got pent up then just for a second. And Abi tells us how she likes to pass the time.
I'm always waffling on LinkedIn, so yeah, I seem to be there every day.
All that and so much more as Abi chats us through her story and journey to date. I have to give a huge shout out to Joe Harley of Purple Cubed, who connected Abi and I for today's chat. I wanted to explore a piece of research that Abi conducted around 3 key areas of candidate experience. If you've got even a remote interest in how to ensure you're giving prospective candidates the right kind of recruitment experience, you'll absolutely want to tune into that. But fair warning, it's a subject very close to both Abi and I's heart. A huge thank you to Abi for bringing the passion. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Abi Dunn. Hello, Abi.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. How's life with you?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, we're riding the hospitality roller coaster once more, aren't we? But all is good.
Hospitality roller coaster. I need to keep writing these down. There's so many analogies now, isn't there, as to what we're... I saw the word permacrisis this morning when talking about... Yeah, it's like that's hospitality at the moment, is that it's just... We deal with the pandemic, and then there's a cost of living crisis, and then energy prices go up, and food inflation's terrible, and trying to get staff is a nightmare, and all of that. So if ever you needed any proof that we are the most resilient industry in the world, then that's it right there.
The resilience has certainly been put to the test, for sure.
Yes, indeed. But we're still here, still smiling.
Yes. Yay!
So how's life in the... Well, actually, just tell everyone who you are and what it is that you do.
So I am the founder of a business called 68 People, and we are a recruitment and training business based up in Manchester. So we look after recruitment for various different niches of clients within hospitality, but all hospitality focused. And I've been in hospitality since I was about 15, I think. So yeah, I'm a lifer, and we're a team of 16 now in Manchester, and hoping to open a second office down in London in the new year.
Oh, I see.
Permacrisis pending.
Yeah, well, indeed. Well, do you know what though? I mean, the vast majority of people I speak to are. I operate a lot within the hotel world, and they're not, singing on the top of their rooftops about the future, but equally, all of the headlines that we read every day, they're not yet feeling the full force of that, and so continue to kind of ride the wave while it's there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our clients are all reporting record weeks, record nights, over capacity bookings, like for like, up from last year. And I know that regions is being affected differently to London currently. But yeah, certainly from the clients that I work with, which tend to be ones that are still kind of opening sites and in growth, because they're the ones that need recruitment support.
Yeah,
it still sounds positive, and it's kind of like we're waiting for something to happen. Around the corner.
Yeah, indeed. Not that we could. We'll always take some support when it comes our way, for sure.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's a great lesson around. Don't believe everything you read in the media, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, the headlines are just so. Yeah, the headlines are awful, and if you just looked at the headlines, you'd think, crikey. But I was talking to somebody yesterday about kind of next year, and it will be the brave, I don't know, CEOs or the brave people at that level that are thinking, right, okay, we're going to plough on, because I suppose that what's the alternative? I don't know what it quite is, what we're waiting for. But if you're not opening sites, you're or growing, you're stood still. And I certainly don't know many hospitality operators that kind of that operate like that. People want to be in growth mode. So yeah, I don't know what January is going to look like, but certainly we haven't seen any signs of crisis in terms of revenue for December yet.
Yeah. And January is always an anomaly anyway, regardless of what's going on in the world. And it annoys me immensely that businesses shut down for a couple of weeks in January, because that's when my birthday is. So I have to make do with whatever's open. But there we are, first world problems.
You'll have to do a double celebration in February.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about a couple of things today, and maybe this episode probably needs to come with a warning that you've got two recruiters together talking about stuff around that. And maybe it might be painful hearing for some people, but I think it's essential that people do hear what we have to say. And this has all kind of come around by the wonderful Joe Harley introduced us to each other, although we have spoken to each other before on a Kieran and Chris podcast.
Of course,
it was they were doing. Yeah. But you did a wonderful piece of research, which we're going to come on to later on, but I kind of want to give people a bit of context about you before we get to that. So over to your story, really. How did you end up getting into hospitality in the first place?
Well, my very first job as ever was in a pub, at the bottom of the road, and wasn't good at it, actually. Wasn't somebody who kind of went into it and went, wow, this is gonna be my life. And I worked in a couple of pubs, and one was like a Toby Carvery type thing, and that didn't really fit in there. And there was a lady called Sylvia that worked there, and she was awful to me. And I was like, God, this is not great, And I just wasn't very good at it. I wasn't good at carrying plates. I was kind of just a bit flappy. And then we've moved into, this is when I'm really young, moved into housekeeping. I was a chambermaid, which it was called at the time. I was called a chambermaid. And I enjoyed that a lot more, actually, because you had the time to clean the room, and I loved the idea of like polishing taps and making it look gorgeous in a 3-star hotel in Skipton.
Well, they should have good taps too.
They should. But I moved. It was really when I went to university. I studied geography randomly in Liverpool, and was run out of money immediately, and spent it on, I think at the time, CDs. And I remember walking around Liverpool with my brother, and looking for a job, and you just walk in and ask for jobs in those days. And I walked into Revolution Vodka Bar on Wood Street, and there was a sign that says glass collectors wanted, and I was like, no way, no fucking way, we're doing glasses, that's it. So we carried on walking all around the city that day, and eventually my brother said to me, like, you're just going to have to go back and ask for that glass collecting job. I was like, bloody hell. So walked back in and gave him my CV and said, I want to be a glass collector. And I ended up working there for 15 years in total. So
as a glass collector?
Revolution. No, thank God. I wasn't a glass collector for a long time, though. Honestly, they used to tell me about, you've got to do X, Y, and Z to get on the bar. And I was like, right, okay. And it was a really busy late night venue, no food, like scurrying around in between people, stacking up glasses. It was a mucky job. You were kind of cleaning toilets and cleaning up sick, and because it was a vodka bar. And eventually I got on the bar, and I wasn't very good at that initially. I wasn't, because it was all about the speed at how much revenue you could do each night, and it took me a while to kind of get to basically shove people out the way behind the bar. You had to be pretty confident, because to be the highest taker, which is obviously what I wanted to be, you were literally shoving people out of the way and getting the till. And we had optics in those days. You're like queuing for the optics.
Right, God,
and
you're definitely dating yourself here.
I know, I shouldn't do, should I? I'm really young. We didn't have optics for very long. We did move on to free pouring not so long after. But I loved Revolution, and they were an unbelievable company to work for, and I felt kind of listened to and developed. And by the time I'd finished university, and I did finish, although I tried to drop out several times, but my boss wouldn't let me. And by the time I finished, I'd worked up to general manager level, and I got my first site at Revolution on Oxford Road when I think I just turned 21. So I was, looking back now, God knows how they gave me that responsibility at that age, but they did. And the rest is history. I stayed as a GM with them for a while and then moved into recruitment and training. So before I got fired as a GM, because you get to a point, don't you, where you don't want to be there on a weekend. I don't know, I probably met a boy or something and didn't want to be there on a weekend. So before they fired me, I said, right, I want to do something else. And luckily they took me into a different department, which was nice.
Right, so that you made the transition over into recruitment and training within that company.
Not straight in. My boss said, go and do something that you're passionate about. And I'd fallen into a recruitment agency and he kind of said, when we grow a little bit more, we'll need a recruitment manager. So he was thinking strategically in the future. So I kind of did a year of agency. And then lo and behold, he contacted me and said, do you want to come back as a recruitment manager? And because I know all the managers there and I'd grown up through their development program. So it was a bit of a no-brainer. And so I was with them again for my first stint I did, I think 7 years, and my second stint I did 8 years. So with a year in between. So 15 years in total. And I've got a lot to be grateful for in terms of what I took from the Roy Ellis and Neil McLeod, for sure.
Yeah, but doesn't that highlight as well the importance of good leadership within an organisation, which I'm sure we're going to get onto at some point, so we might as well bring it up now, is that, here's, let's talk about Sylvia as an example, your first experience working for somebody who was nasty to you. If that's your first experience of work, and then I suppose guilty by association, the sector then in your mind is like, well, this is not the place for me. So it's almost like the people don't realize just how important that first impression is, like for people walking through their door.
Crikey, yeah, and it's all on the manager, isn't it? You can have brilliant CEOs and brilliant people directors, but unless that general manager, and it is the GM usually that's the most influential person in a site, unless that person is inspirational and gives a shit and genuinely cares about employee experience, then you could be in and out and never and presume that that's what hospitality is like. And I bet we lose a lot of people who have one bad experience and never come back.
Absolutely. Well, let that be a message to all of them, because they're all listening, of course.
Yeah, and it is, it's not that when I've had good managers and not so good ones. When I reflect on it, the not so good ones were there was a lot of ego involved. A lot of, I don't know whether it was wanting the limelight or just it being about their own personal journey. And I really think that the best leaders actually they're fairly selfless, and actually they're bringing other people along with them, and what motivates them the most is other people's journey, and then you get your own journey by default. But they're the best leaders that I've come across that are championing others rather than championing themselves, for sure.
Yeah, I generally find that the scenario around that is that if people are championing others more than themselves, is that ultimately they end up rising quicker anyway, because they're doing all the right things and their business is better for it. They're taking more money, so on and so forth, and all these wonderful byproducts of just being a good person.
Yeah, for sure. And I was certainly told when I was a general manager that I was too nice a lot of times, and it probably was why I moved ultimately from kind of the upside into people. We talk about insights colours. I didn't have enough red energy, and I was too sunshine yellow. But actually, that was some people's perception of it. It didn't mean to say that I couldn't run a business. And actually, it's sad that was thought of. Whether it was a female thing, I don't know. But I was definitely thought to be too nice to be a good manager. But I now hopefully successfully lead a team, and I don't think there is such a thing as too nice. I know nice is not the right word, maybe, but I don't think there is such a thing as being too kind. Yeah, and I was told that I wouldn't never be a good manager because I couldn't have difficult conversations. Well, I think difficult conversations you can learn how to have. I was in my early 20s. I didn't find it easy to have difficult conversations, but I think that you can learn how to have those.
Yeah.
It's a learned skill.
Absolutely. And all a difficult conversation is exactly the same equivalent of putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. That's just another form of that. That's all that is. And the more you do it, the more, the easier it becomes. And the thing is you don't have to be an arsehole to be direct, or
Yeah.
get to the point. That's the thing and this for me is a hugely important part of how we move forward as a collective, because I come from probably similar generation for you. I also worked behind a bar and also had optics, so and also went out and bought
Yes.
CDs when I was
Do you think I'll
at
make a
uni. So
comeback one day?
well, they were quite convenient if you were getting
They
through
were.
an awful lot of. I used to work in a holiday park and we had a show lounge of 3,000 people, so we
Yeah.
were absolutely churning them out, and just to go like that, you know,
Yeah.
and get
I mean, it doesn't
sorry,
look cool, does it? It's not as cool
no,
as the swing it around your head and pour it into a cocktail shaker. But yeah, we had much less stock problems.
that's very very true, very very true. Yeah, but the point is around. If we it's kind of the same principle of saying, but that's how it's always been, so
Yeah.
that's how it has to be going forward. And it's exactly the same principle around leadership, I think, is that
Mm.
leadership by cane, or by being a dictator or whatever, is how it used to
Yeah.
be, but it's absolutely not what we need right now, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's shocking now that it still exists, but it does. I have so many conversations with people, about conversations that they've had. I don't know if it exists even more in hospitality than other sectors. I don't know. There's quite I think we do have some dated leadership, and sorry, no offense, but more often than not, it's male.
Yeah, no, no.
It
You
is.
don't. You can't offend me. What is it? The phrase is offence is taken, it's not given, or the other way around. I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it's a good phrase. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we do still hear some horror stories, and yeah, it's sad to hear really, because especially where the industry's got so many challenges about retention and yeah, losing people. Then actually, it needs to start from the top, doesn't it? If you're treated well from the top down, then it will cascade down.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's lots of horror stories.
yeah, indeed. Well, I mean that kind of ties in nicely with the research that you've done, which again I'm just going to kick down the road a little bit, because I do want to finish your story first, as it were. So
Yeah.
you were a recruitment manager at Revolution. What happened
Yes.
next?
I loved that job. It was my favourite job, and it's one of the
Oh,
reasons why
15
I've got
years.
such a yeah, I know. It's one of the reasons why I've got such a lovely network now. Because I've interviewed. When you work, Revolution at the time had 57 sites, and I was terrassing around the country. Doing first interviews for everybody. Face to face everybody. So if you do that for 4 years every week, you meet a lot of people. So that creates a really lovely network. And eventually I moved on to be their training manager as well. So at that time we started a training academy. So many probably GMs now and ops managers have gone through that training academy as well. So it's lovely to see their journey, and that they all talk about the academy. We did like 3 intakes a year, and for each intake there was like a kind of an induction party, and they've all got stories to tell about how drunk I was at the induction party. So there's
Oh
lots of
yes.
lots of those rattling around the UK. But eventually I moved on from Revolution. I went to work in a big recruitment agency called Search, and it wasn't my bag. It was too big. Hospitality was a tiny little part of a much bigger organisation. They've
Right.
had recruitment teams in finance and IT, and we were a tiny little portion of it. And it was too much red tape. It wasn't the way I wanted to recruit, and I didn't last very long, to be honest. I was probably there just a year, and then luckily at the time, Rory Laffin, who runs B recruitment in London, I'd been a client of his, and we'd kept in touch, and we'd always gotten really well. And he spoke to me about kind of coming on board and setting up like a northern part of B. So, and at the time I was actually pregnant, so I kind of made them. It was a self-employed role, but working under his banner. So I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and took quite a risk really, going from employed was pregnant to kind of being self-employed, but
Mm.
I did it, and it worked out. And I was with Rory for about 4 years. I had a great time. We'll always sing Rory's praises, but eventually wanted to do my own thing. And so I had a difficult conversation with him, and we parted ways. We're still friends, and I set up 68 People about 4 years ago now. So it's our 4th birthday in January. Yeah, and I suppose the rest is history. We started just me and my mum, and because my mum works in the business and does our kind of accounting and credit control and recruiting from sofas in pajamas to now we've got a team of 16 and an office in Manchester. So we've been on quite a journey.
Yeah, team of 16. That's not a small company in recruitment terms, especially when your focus is purely within hospitality.
Yeah, it's not, and it's we've got some kind of central support within that. So we've got digital marketing, we've got a relationship manager, we've got a training division as well. So we've kind of grown the business to support operators do leadership training. So Caliban and Smith joined us from Living Ventures, and so that's. We've kind of got, we're setting it up for growth now, and we hopefully having this kind of quite a solid central function will mean that we can kind of go to different parts of the country and help clients where we've not been able to help them before.
Yeah, hands off London.
Yeah. Well, it's so big, isn't it? Kind of, I was down this week, and it's just a different beast. It's like every single little part of it is like a northern city. It's so big.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm lucky enough to have been joined 18 months ago by Charlotte Kemp, who was we worked together at Revolution. I managed to convince her when I did my little hiatus in recruitment, I managed to convince her to go and be a general manager for them. And I think at the time, she was thinking, Revolution's not my bag. And I was like, no, honestly, please, come on. And so we were thick as thieves throughout our Revolution days. She went on to be an ops manager and then moved on to Mission Mars with Albert Schloss and Rudy's and became their ops director, and then went into people as people director. And about 18 months ago, we were kind of chatting about doing something together. And so she came on board, and the business has changed significantly. She's put lots in place that's allowed her, going back to the leadership thing. She's an incredible leader, and all the things that you see about great leaders, about having honest conversations, how organized. She's super organized, super efficient. She leads with red energy, but she's so she's direct, but she gives a shit about everybody, which is I have to share the credit for our growth over the last couple of years, I have to say,
as all good leaders do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're growing to that size. You can't do that alone, for sure. That would have take up a lot of your probably will and passion and energy. You've got to bring people along on the journey, for sure.
Yeah, and we flip between one day I suppose it'll be me going, Jesus Christ, can we do this? And then she's going, yeah, we definitely can. And then the following day it's her going, fuck, we do the right thing. And I'm then the one that's going, we're on it, we can do it. So if you're on your own in that journey, you've got nobody to kind of push you along over the fear, the bits that scare you a little bit. So it's really nice to have somebody that lifts you up.
I really love actually what you wrote in the notes around, like, one of the greatest lessons you can learn is actually around belief. And actually it's 80% of how you will achieve something comes from your belief system. And if you've got somebody there who, and I suppose this also works in kind of general terms in business, in any form, in your life, at home, whatever, you've got somebody who is the kind of the yin to your yang, it can lead to, I suppose, a more rationale thinking. Like, as an example, I'm a quite a flamboyant thinker. I think about saving the world pretty much on every single day, and I don't know what that looks like, but in any case, it's nice to have grand plans with no plan. There we are. And all of the time, I've got people around me who are good at keeping me in check, so I keep my feet on the ground. Mm-hmm. I don't get ahead of myself and all of these things, but actually you need the people with the ideas as well to generate things. And I've got a saying that I always use around the fact that all of the greatest ideas in the history of the world were shot down by people around who had no concept of what that idea is first. So just
Yeah.
because 10 people around you are saying to you that, that idea is harebrained, it's probably more of a reason to explore it, because it doesn't mean because other people can't get it. It just means that it's not a fully formed idea yet. So you need to go and use that belief system to really max it out.
Yeah, definitely. And it means it's unique as well, doesn't it? That, yeah, it just gives you more hoops to kind of jump through if you're not getting people on board immediately. But yeah, on the belief thing, I speak to a lot of people who, maybe especially women who do doubt themselves, and God, I hope I can at some point in my career help as many women as possible kind of turn that mindset around, and really kind of empower them to think that it is so much about just believing that you can do it. Not to get into too personal a story, but when I was 30, I ended up being a single mum of twins, and I had the twins on my own, and I was on my own with them for about two and a half years from being pregnant. And I think once you go through something like that, and it's not a sob story, I had an absolute ball with these boys, and they're now 11. And I wouldn't change anything about any part of it. I genuinely wouldn't. But once you do something like that, then you believe you can do anything. And so just to have that change and to have that idea, it's stood me in good stead as those two little babies.
Yeah, but that's you say it's not a sob story, and it's absolutely not a sob story at all. But it is almost a story of overcoming adversity to some description, because you're on your own having to raise two human beings. That's not an insignificant achievement to pull that off. And your learning experience must have been like a straight up, not even a that kind of diagonal up on a graph. It would have been straight up, because what choice did you have, right? And this is a thing for me, is that I've become more appreciative of the need for adversity in our lives to make ourselves better human beings. All of the 100%. Good stuff comes out of the bad times. Most of the bad stuff comes out when it's easy, and that's probably the same as we're now in this situation whereby we're going to talk about leadership probably in a second. But hospitality exploded on the back of the last downturn in 2008-9, and we weren't ready for it. We absolutely were not ready for it as an industry. We had to promote people before they were ready. These people found themselves out of their depth very, very quickly. The support function around them wasn't strong enough to allow them to flourish. And this is a general statement. Of course, there are many, many success stories in this as well. But that's probably one of the reasons why we find ourselves in a situation now whereby we're struggling to find people, because we haven't protected the people well enough that care about this industry.
Yeah.
So that's rant number one.
There's so many, isn't there? Yeah. But on the caring, God, there's so many. You talk to people about the industry, it becomes your life, and not necessarily my story, but so many people that you hear, it's so ingrained and woven throughout their entire life, and they speak so highly of it, and it is like a love affair, with hospitality, and there's thousands of people like that. I don't think it's uncommon to, and you don't hear that about any other sector, do you? No one sat there going, "Oh God, I love tech. I love even retail. God, I die for retail." Nobody fucking says that. But they would say it for hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if fundamentally, if you like people, then this is, just come in and we'll sort out the details as you go.
Yeah, I know. And in terms of people working in it now, look, I've read quite a little bit about kind of people about loneliness being something that young people are struggling with. Whether when you go to university and or just young people in general. And actually, one of the biggest ways to kind of combat that would be to get a job in hospitality. You're instantly rocketed into, and you've got to be somewhere. You've got to communicate with people around you in a team. If there's any parent anywhere that's worried about their kind of child going off to uni or being on their own, convince them to get a job in hospitality, because you've suddenly got a team of people around you that give a shit about you, and that's life changing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also it comes back to that comfort zone thing again. Like that if you're not so great in that kind of environment, I guarantee you after a couple of shifts you will be. Because, and actually coming back to your story around that first time that you were put behind the bar, when you must have felt monumentally out of your depth, like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this shift kind of, and I'm thinking that way because I remember the first time I was put behind the bar as well, and it was that 3,000 people show lounge bar, and you just think to yourself, I can't do this. What you want me to serve 10 people in the space of a minute? But but then by the end
I
of
have
the
to
shift,
say, I still have nightmares now. I still have nightmares now about being behind a bar and about loads of people, being like 4 deep at the bar and not being able to kind of like, nightmares where like you can't speak or you can't physically do something. But yeah, and one thing to remember is like half the world are introverts, right? And so people getting jobs in hospitality, and I've seen like some of the best people in hospitality are introverts, but you wouldn't necessarily think that fits, but yeah, it really does take people on just such a beautiful journey, and it's God, if I could stand and all my 3 children, I'd be saying to them, as soon as they can, as soon as they get them out to work, I'll be getting them out to work, pot washing somewhere. It's and the other thing I think what it did for me in terms of starting, I don't know how we've got onto starting in the industry, it's probably me, sorry. I was right. I was a bit of a nerd. I was a nerd at school, I was like I was in a magical group. So I was definitely a nerd. But then as soon as you started working in Revolution Vodka Bar, you're mixing with people significantly older than you and from all different walks of life. Yeah, and it really kind of, you got the opportunity to become who you want to be at that point rather than a nerd. Hopefully I'm not a nerd now.
Well, you're a recruitment nerd now.
We're all a nerd. Yeah, we're all a nerd.
Business nerd. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Big up the nerds for sure. Back to your story, just for we're kind of have wrapped it up, but there's a section in the middle that I really want to talk about, which is because this is actually the first time that I had heard of you, as it were, was COVID obviously happened. As a small business owner, you and I have been through a similar journey, and in that moment was scary beyond words, but the lessons we learned and all of that were quite amazing. And actually what I remember about you is that you actually started a campaign. All I did was start a podcast. So you tell us about that. How did that come about? What was the kind of the thinking behind that?
Well, Phil, one of my flamboyant ideas landed, and similar to you, have lots of them that never fucking go anywhere. So
when you've got a bit of time and there's no money coming in anyway, that's the time to give stuff a shot, right?
So shockingly, one of my ideas, did really well. So it was myself and Antonia Lalmont she'd put a tweet out about the number of cancellations that she'd had, and her and I were friends, and I remember going into a pub, and it was when you couldn't walk up to the pub at the time. It was all like red taped off, and we kind of sat there and put this little campaign together, literally on the back of a napkin, and drew a logo, and we'd arranged for. I wanted it to. We had this idea about it being like a thunderclap thing, where everybody posts something about it at the same time. So, and it was a campaign, kind of no more no shows, about challenging customer behaviour, about cancelling reservations.
Yeah.
And so we got, at the time, I remember asking loads of people, look, can you just post this at this time? Post this at this time. And I got some shit for it, actually. I got people saying, I used to recruiter harvesting data, and I was like, fucking hell, I'm trying my best here. I wasn't trying to harvest data. Anyway, it went pretty well, and we got kind of coverage. Like Antonio was on the BBC, it was on Channel 4 and ITV, and it had loads of celebrity chefs at the time were having the same problem, so they kind of got behind it, and so something I did landed, which was nice, and it was good to have some kind of whatever small part it had on people showing up. Then I'm glad I could play some kind of supportive role.
Yeah, I mean, it was a disease before the pandemic anyway.
Yeah,
accentuated by the pandemic as well, where businesses had been crippled through that period, and so then to come back and I've seen this happen in big businesses where they have EAs who are booking out tables in 10 different restaurants for their chief exec, but then fail to cancel the 9 that they don't use. Or even the 10 if they decide not to go for lunch, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I mean, absolutely, It sounds so condescending. Well played, you. It's such a monumentally wonderful thing to put on the map. And as you say, even if it just puts a little seed of doubt into people, well, if I'm going to cancel, at least adhere to the cancellation policy, which is generally not unreasonable.
No, exactly. I do. When we talk a lot to people working in the industry, and customer behaviour comes up a lot as reasons for stress, anxiety, for leaving the industry, and it's it is a real problem, and especially maybe in the late night or the bar sector where actually there's a lot more alcohol involved. That it is a reason why people leave.
Yeah,
and it's I haven't got any solutions, but it certainly feels as though with the younger generation coming through, who are maybe not wanting to have confrontational situations with customers, that actually they just go, fuck it, I'm going to leave. I don't want that. I don't want that argument. I don't want that Karen moaning about whatever. Sorry, Karens.
Yeah.
But that they'll leave rather than try and develop their own skill around it. They'll leave, and I think that is a real challenge that the industry has now, and that's just no more no-shows, which is one element of consumer behaviour, wasn't it? But it is still a problem. Whatever, God, I love customers, and we can't have an industry without them, can we? But there are some. It'd be lovely to do some like customer training. Can we do that?
Well, there's an idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, how does? But I've often thought about this. Like, there's also, we've all been customers and consumers of hospitality and any other service that you care to mention over the years. There's being a good customer and there's being a bad customer. And actually, I've always found by being, even when you want to complain about something, if you're good about it, you get more back. Like,
I just cannot understand people being rude. People being. I just don't get it. I just, belittling somebody. It's never the person's fault that you're dealing with. It's whatever problem that you've got. 9 times out of 10, it's not the server's fault. And so just being rude. I really wouldn't want to be friends with somebody that was rude to hospitality workers. It's such a. It really pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's really unnecessary, and it's very egotistical.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. Yeah, and that's also, I suppose it's part of the overall jigsaw as to why we end up losing people. It's not, we're going to talk now about, one of the reasons why we're having our chat today, but there's so many parts of the jigsaw. And, if guests and customers can learn that they're having an impact, I mean, I don't know if they'd ever take it on board, but all we can do is look after yourself, right? As you said in your notes that you very kindly sent through to me, just be kind, just be cool.
Yeah.
Like, what's the need to get angry at everything?
Yeah. No, and it is, you see it all the time, and it's not just alcohol related. There are people that are just snippy and curt, and I don't like it. Yeah. Call it out. If you're with people that are being rude, you should call it out and just move them away from the situation, because more often than not, it's not the young girl or young lad's fault that you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. Just think of the health benefits of just being cool. Like, so much better for your heart, so much better for your stress. It's so much better for everything. Just stop being an arse and just be cool. There we are.
Yeah, I was in a restaurant yesterday, and the girl, I had like a chicken skewer, and she was pulling the skewer out in front of me, and it kind of slipped, and basically the sauce went all over my bright green, like kind of Thai coloured sauce, Thai green sauce went all over my face and all down my jumper, and she was absolutely mortified. But what is the point in me? I never would. It would never be in me to be angry in any way. But it's just like, look, it happens. Please don't worry about it. But you can just know that she's got. If that was somebody else, that she would have just got a load of grief, and I want a new jumper, blah blah. But it's just like, it just happens, doesn't it? She feels bad enough without you making her feel any worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, right. Let's get to. You did a wonderful piece of research, and not only is it wonderful, it's beautifully presented as well. Is that because you've got a digital marketer on board now?
Yes, because we've got loads of people. Yeah, it's not me. Yeah, it was being like hand drawn on some napkin if it was me. No, somebody very creative has done that.
Yeah. So talk to me about how this came about. What was the I mean, I could probably guess the motivation as to why you wanted to do it, but how did it all come about?
Well, I don't know if this is the motivation that you want, but I was asked to speak at a caterer, the caterer running their Northern People event. And I thought, look, what people really want to know, I think the valuable opinion that I've got is this kind of umbrella piece of you sit over lots of different clients. So, look, I love going to all these industry events and it's great to hear somebody speak, but many a time they're speaking about their own experience within their own organization. So to have the opportunity to be able to talk from a kind of overarching piece of like, this is what's happening as a third party, and this is what's happening to candidates, and this is what some operators are doing, I thought would be really valuable. So I mean, it wasn't like it's not like a piece of university work or anything. It's not like a dissertation. It was a survey that we put together on Jotform and shared it across all the Facebook groups. And I say Facebook groups because there's thousands of members of these Facebook groups that are the bar groups. So in the north per city, there's a kind of bar operators one, and then there's a sales and events one. So we shared it all across those groups, and the take-up was really good. It was a really short survey. So we had about 200 and odd people fill it in. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not thousands and thousands. I'm sure an insight person would tell you that you needed thousands of pieces of data, but we got over different surveys, we got about 500 something pieces of data altogether. And we were asking about candidate experience, we were asking about work-life balance, and we were asking about team turnover. They were the three things that I was kind of wanted to talk about. So the survey was kind of angled to get some data around those.
Yeah.
And yeah, were the results surprising? Probably not. Because as a fellow recruiter, you hear stories. I'm sure you hear stories all the time about the reality of what's happening. And for me, the one that stood out the most was around this candidate experience piece. And I think where every company misses a trick, because it's not just one company, actually. Nobody is really thinking about the people that don't get a job. So the people that go through a recruitment process with you and don't get a job, actually, they kind of come onto a certain radar, don't they, an operator's radar off a stage. And so that, then they suddenly started measuring, their engagement might start to be measured if you're lucky. But before that, there was all sorts of horrendous experiences that just nobody knew about. There were companies with amazing values and, really wonderful people teams and ops teams, but no one knew what was happening to these people because it was happening at site level and it was never measured. And so that was the kind of data that was really interesting, and it makes you think about when we're trying to attract young people as their first job into the industry. How many of them are having a really shit interview or recruitment process and going, yeah, screw hospitality.
Yeah. And especially at a time when by there's no shortage of jobs for these people. If you walk into
everybody's fighting for them,
yeah, and you have a really terrible interview experience. And do you know the thing that oh God, I got pent up then just for a second. The thing that kind of really winds me up is the fact that everybody knows this. This is not.
I know, it's bloody not rocket science, is it? It's the basics. It's the same stuff I was talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's and I was lucky enough to have a lady on the podcast a few weeks ago called Varian Palmer, who's the GM down at the Headland Hotel in Newquay in Cornwall. Nice. Wonderful business. She had a great saying, which I've now taken into my own psyche, is the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept. And
love it.
Yeah, it's really powerful, isn't it? And that was applied to her from an operations perspective in terms of, you walk past a napkin on the floor or something like that, then you're willing to have that kind of level of cleanliness as your thing. But actually, when you equate it back to methods of business in any form, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Is that you really should be, as a business, when you're trying to attract people into your business at a time when it's difficult to attract people into your business, making sure that you are absolutely, if nothing else, just getting some human basics in play. Make somebody feel like they belong the moment they walk in the door. And if you 100%. Can't do that, then you need to find somebody who can, because that's, if you're not getting past that, you're just going to be in this perpetual battle to find people who will come. Maybe if they do get through that, they'll then stay an hour of a shift and go, well, this is not a great place to be, so forget it. Thanks very much.
Yeah. And I think it takes a lot, it takes young people a lot. I read something the other day about a father that was kind of not moaning. He was saying that his daughter had been in somewhere and handed a CV, and asked, and that she was told quite abruptly, you need to apply online. And I was like, God, that. Why would you do that? Why not just find the time to sit down with someone? Someone's taken the time to choose your business, to walk in with a CV, and to print it out, to do it properly, to you're crazy to just go
to have the
apply
confidence
online,
to come in as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And what the bit that kind of really winds me up is that we're a hospitality business, and we're not treating these guys that are coming for interviews like we would, like, equally to how we treat our guests. You would never dream of a guest walking in and forgetting that they were coming, or not giving them the time of day, or being on your phone during an interview, all the horrible things that happen. And it's we've got a long way to go, and I think but really easy things to get right. I was talked when I was speaking about, if somebody comes in and you're expecting them, you know who they are and what time, how wonderful would it be if you were welcomed by name as you walked in, or if you got an interview, oh, hi, is it Phil? Yeah, brilliant, take a seat.
Yeah.
But it's so shoddy, managers being late, managers being interrupted. One of the stats on this survey was that 43% of people's interviews were less than 10 minutes. I mean, that's just shit. Like, what do you know about somebody in 10 minutes? You either made a snap judgment, or and it's not just about, if somebody's brilliant, even if they're brilliant and your 10 minutes is thinking, God, this guy's great, I've got to get them in. That's not enough. You've got to give the person the opportunity to engage with you and, get to know you and have the power of choice and know a bit about you.
Yeah.
One of the other stats was that 36% of people had never heard back from a first interview. And look, I'm not saying people need individual feedback, but to never hear back,
just some kind of
I don't think you need exactly. I mean, and we moan about people ghosting us. Well, bloody hell, sometimes you think we deserve it, because if this is what we're delivering as a recruitment piece,
and again,
we're on a high horse now.
Here we go. That is one high horse for sure. But no, but I completely agree with you, and I suppose this is the thing. The comment you made earlier around when you did the campaign, and people look at us recruiters and go, "Oh, there they are. They're just farming data or whatever. Or that's all they're in this for." I can't speak for all of the recruiters out there, but I certainly know that you, and I certainly know that I absolutely give a shit about this industry, and I've never cared more, I think, than I do right now, because it needs us, it needs our help, and it needs all of us to stop getting in each other's way and start helping each other to make the industry better. And so anybody who's listening out there who thinks that all recruiters and that's all we care about, then sorry, but I will fight that until the cows come home.
I mean, I tell you, I challenge everybody that's ever used a recruiter to go and talk to the recruiter and ask genuinely about their own recruitment process, and you'll get some of the best feedback you've ever had. Because it's an interesting relationship, a client and a recruiter, depending on who your client is within the business. But it is a unique position, because you see how an operator's recruitment process is comparing to others. So you can see why candidates are making the choices that they're making. So, we have got some clients that do kind of talk a lot about their people culture, and actually, we would be able to give them some feedback on how that's not come across in their interview process, or that, X, Y, or Z has happened. So I do challenge people to talk to their recruiter and kind of use them, because actually they've got so much information in their head from all the conversations that they have, hundreds of conversations, and they know exactly what's going on with different clients. It's a really untapped resource of a recruiter's mind of kind of, how to make your recruitment journey better internally.
Yeah, totally. And actually, even if I would encourage people to reach out to you and get this wonderful document that you've put together, just to kind of because it's really visual, and it really breaks it down very, very simply, and to understand where some of the gaps might be in the process, and why you're not being able to retain people and all of these things. But I think even if you as a business think to yourself, actually, do you know what, we're doing okay, I'd reach out anyway, because actually it's really, really important that you protect whatever you think it is that you're doing well, but also,
Yeah.
it's just, it kind of serves as a warning. This is what's going to happen if you let your standards drop. So,
Yeah.
there's wins even for the companies that are doing things great, and thankfully there are many of them. I definitely don't want to paint an image of the industry that everybody's crap and everybody's doing things badly, because that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah, and it's a site level thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it happens at the greatness or the weaknesses happen at site level. So, and I really think this recruitment experience is a site level piece of work. It's not a cascading, I mean, it's a little bit of this, but cascading systems or processes down and a bit of values at the top. This is a team of people, of hourly paid people, and a management team should be saying, right, how can we make this experience great, and coming and having the freedom or autonomy to make some decisions about process, right? What can we do to make someone feel fucking brilliant here, and make somebody welcome?
yeah,
It's not a top down, oh, this process, this process, this process. It has to be a collaborative, like, let's all sit down and do a session on how do we make recruitment great in our site. That's when I think we'll see change, not just more processes coming in from the HR team.
yeah. And I mean, ultimately, there's no real downside to this, because even think about,
No,
if you
no
you have
cost either to many of it.
totally. I mean, you welcome somebody into your business to give them an interview, and you look after them in that process, but maybe they're not the right candidate for your business or whatever it is. But you've looked after them, they're going to remember that. So they go away and
Definitely.
they upskill themselves, and they come back 3 years later for an assistant manager job or a manager job or whatever. And they come back to you because I remember that time that Abby looked after me
Yeah.
when she interviewed me for that role that I didn't get.
And you'll know this as well as I do, Phil, that it's such a small industry. It's such a small industry that
Yeah,
that person that you're a bit of a dick to in 2 years' time, you suddenly you come across them again, and
yeah,
they're interviewing you, or you never know.
yeah, yeah,
It's too small an industry to not treat people fucking brilliantly.
yeah. Here.
Lots of swearing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Phil.
No, no, it's all right. It's all right. I just took a box on Apple that says, it's going to be explicit, so that's fine.
I'm like a rapper.
Brilliant. Any other big points from your research that you think are worth sharing?
So we did candidate experience, didn't we? Oh yes, there is work-life balance. Like it remains the biggest reason people come to us for a job and want to leave their current job, and it remains the biggest reason why people want to join an employer. So if an employer is committing to a 40-hour week contract or 40, and they've got a process in place to flag up hours over that, so whether that's overtime, paid overtime, or time in lieu, those companies are winning. They're winning the race. But shockingly, in the survey, we found that 86% of people were not paid overtime for their hours, and 78% of people work more than their contracted hours. That's a lot, and a lot of them are doing, some might be a couple, but some are doing between 5 and 10 more than their contracted hours, week in, week out. And I cannot hear again, oh, that's just the industry. I can't hear from another kind of operator that that's just the industry that we work in, because that's not good enough.
Yeah.
We are competing with every other single industry for talent, so we're not going to win if we don't pay people for hours that they work. I mean, it's bloody ridiculous. We've got away with it for too long, and it's not good enough anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's another piece of the jigsaw, isn't it? I mean, there's so many pieces of the jigsaw to
I know,
to
it's a
get
massive
right.
jigsaw, Phil.
Yeah, it is. I'm still, what's 10,000 pieces probably? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
But there we are.
One piece
Isn't
at a
my
time.
house.
We'll solve it one piece at a time.
Yeah, but that is the thing. But it also, I think, critically, it needs enough people to want to make the change, but then
Yeah,
actually carry it out. Like, it's one thing to talk about the issue, right? It's another thing to actually start implementing things. And everything that we're talking about here, okay, it might take your business a little bit of time if you're used to a scenario whereby you do ask a little bit more of people week in, week out, to
yeah.
adjust that. But actually, things like improving your recruitment experience, you could change just by changing your mindset towards it. That's literally it.
Yeah, and I don't want, like, I'd hate to think that somebody was listening going, oh my God, you don't know how a P&L works. We can't suddenly, up our labour percentages. Everything's so tight.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. And it's the restaurants, it's the food operations that will take the biggest hit on that. But, I have shares in a bar down the road. So I'm not, I've got an operational mind. I understand kind of how P&Ls work. And I know this isn't easy to suddenly go, like, okay, we're going to pay everybody for every single hour that they work, but it just has to happen. We have to find a way to do it, because it's not good enough to not do it, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the choice is that we don't deal with that, and then we are just in this perpetual cycle of being at the bottom of the tree, really, when it comes to talent.
Yeah, but it all sounded a bit negative then, but yeah, I think the changes that we've seen. Yes, the changes that we've seen over the last 18 months have been significant, haven't they?
Yeah.
We've never, if we were sat here pre-COVID and thought that we could have seen the salary increases that we've seen the benefits package increases that we've seen the difference that we have made to work-life balance for so many people, the development paths, the training pathways. Look, there's so much positive stuff happened in such a short period of time, and that's also worth remembering.
Yeah, and I think there's also a greater willingness to share now than I can ever remember. So people who are out there doing things well are they're not like, this is mine. This has worked for us. If you want a blueprint, then give us a shout and we'll see what we can do to help. Because ultimately, we all rise together,
collaboration, right? Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So, actually, I'll make a plea. This will give an indication as to how many people are still listening. But if you are out there doing something really cool and brilliant and you're happy to share, please do reach out, because I'd love to have a conversation with you around what it is that you're doing that's making the difference. Because I think if enough of us do that, then we start turning the tide, basically. And
and I think I'm always looking for the one big solution to all this, and it is that I'm never going to find that, am I? I think one thing we talk about at 68 People is Dave Brailsford's marginal gains. It's tiny tweaks to everything. It's 100 changes about a recruitment process. It's that's going to turn the dial. It's not one big thing. But yeah, those 100 things are really easy to do because we know what they are. They're just going to somebody, making sure the interview starts on time, making sure you give them 30 minutes, making sure you've welcomed them properly, make sure you made them a drink. They're tiny things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of stuff will change the dial in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I've always said, if enough people look after their own house, then ultimately they become the majority. And all the rest are being left so far behind that they have no choice but to up the game as well. So excellent. Well, let's leave on a high. I mean, to be honest, this is a high for me, because this is stuff that absolutely needs to be talked about front and center for as long as it takes for it to kind of sink in, and for as long as it takes to actually make meaningful change. So this is a really positive conversation for me, and I hope that people out there think the same, because as you say, we can absolutely as the people who operate on the fringes and in the shadows of the industry
lurking,
we get such a sweeping view of how good or bad things are, so we can absolutely be here to help in that process.
Go and speak to your recruiter and find out what's good, how they rate your recruitment experience.
And be ready and don't blame them.
Keep using them.
Absolutely, and up your rate as well. Sorry, no. Final thing to kind of I suppose just summarize positively, but let's come back to the whole reason why this podcast is here in the first place, which is to promote the industry. It might sound like we've not been doing that, but actually what would be your top 3 reasons as to why somebody should come and join hospitality?
What would be my top 3? Friends, definitely. Look, I've met some of the most wonderful people, and I'm a different person because of the people that I've met in hospitality, and I wouldn't have met them anywhere else. General coolness, is that a thing? I just think just because you meet so many different people and you're put under this kind of different set of challenges, you just become maybe cool is not the right word, but more resilient, more kind of more broad, more diverse in your thinking, more open-minded. So that's 2. And 3rd, and it's an obvious one and everyone says it, but the opportunities are endless, aren't they? You can you get into the right company, and you can, the sky is your oyster, the world's your oyster, and the sky's your limit. The sky's your oyster, Phil.
Yes, we always I like a new saying on this show. That'll do.
There you go.
The sky is your oyster. Excellent. If people want to reach out to you and learn more about you, or talk to you about your research and your general campaigning, what's the best method for them to do that?
Either by our website or probably LinkedIn. I'm always waffling on LinkedIn, so I seem to be there every day. So LinkedIn is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, excellent. Well, look, thank you very, very much. I can't believe it's probably taken me this long to get you on the show, because I've had to get out of my own way about getting another recruiter on the show. But we talked about egos
I really
earlier
appreciate
on.
it.
No problem at all. I mean, ultimately there's absolutely enough business for us all out there, isn't there? So, and I absolutely fundamentally believe that you're one of the good. I was going to say good guys. It's not very PC, is it, these days? But you're one of the good people.
I'll take it. Yeah, you too. Thanks, Phil. You too.
Yeah, we should all look after each other, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Take care. And there we have it. No doubt that Abby's flying the positive flag for hospitality, and I'd encourage everyone to reach out to her and engage on her research. Thanks so much, Abby. I'll be back again next week with more stories from hospitality, but until then, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.